Hello everyone and welcome back to Atlanta where we are here, Red Hat's Summit here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight, alongside Rob Strechay. Rob, this has been already a great morning. We just had Matt Hicks on the show.
Yeah, I mean, we have a power-packed morning and it doesn't stop with Matt. It gets, keeps going and just the energy here is fantastic.
A veritable who's who of Red Hat executives. I would like to welcome Ashesh Badani, Senior Vice President and Chief Product Officer here at Red Hat. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you Rebecca and Rob for having me back.
And great job, two days in a row on the main stage. One of the things we're hearing a lot here is that AI, the bottleneck in AI isn't the model, it's the platform. From your perspective as CPO, how true is that and where are you seeing organizations getting stuck?
Yeah, we've been talking now about AI for just maybe a few years, but it feels like forever, right? And then increasingly the conversation has shifted to, and we've also changed our conversation, right? In the earliest days it was about models and there's a lot of models coming out and folks looking to fine-tune models and so on. Now, more and more attention has shifted towards inferencing, right? Because I've got these models running now, how do I make sure I run them efficiently? A lot of talk around tokenomics, right? Internally at Red Hat, we've also been thinking about, how do we ensure we give token budgets to engineers in addition to, just like how you give, cloud spend or a T&E spend to individual teams. And we've also now expanded that into newer areas, mostly because everyone's enamored by taking advantage of agentic workflows, right? And so how can we bring what I'll call effectively the enterprise abilities that we did for Linux, we did for Kubernetes, and bring those exactly now to the AI world, which is now increasingly an agentic focused world.
And I think one of the things is people are looking at, hey, our GPU utilization's at 5 to 10% maybe, and we've maybe on-prem and in the cloud at that. How do we get to efficiencies and how do we get to kind of convergence? Because, oh, by the way, this AI is still not our main applications that generate all our revenue and stuff like that. Right. What are you seeing for customers? I mean, there's a ton of them around here today this week that have been talking about, hey, I have to keep the lights on and look at that convergence together.
Yeah, great question there and point that you're making, Rob, is because we started off yesterday's keynote, Matt initially shared the overall Red Hat AI strategy, but then also our own personal journey, right? That we are going through as a company and have been now for a couple of years. But then we went quickly into virtualization because to your point, customers still have a virtualization cost crisis that they are trying to address. Legacy VMs, containers, cloud native apps, right? OpenShift, it's very clear, great platform for it. Increasingly now the conversation we have with them is, well, you can't just do a VM migration, right? A like-to-like VM migration only takes you so far. You've got to now start thinking about, this is the platform to run AI workloads. The moment you do that, now we're back into, well, when you look at this platform, is there, for example, capability within the platform to ensure you're taking efficient use of the underlying GPUs. GPUs are expensive, hard to get. You make sure you've got security, isolation that's going on, right, for the agents that are running in these environments. Are you running these models efficiently? This sort of ability to have larger models, smaller models, and take advantage of how you run them? Are you thinking about things like guardrails, evaluation technology? So there's a whole lot that comes with it, and I think that's really where Red Hat comes in to say, we'll apply what we did from an open source perspective to Linux, to Kubernetes, to this new environment as well.
You talked about token economics, and as well as your own personal journey as a company and how you're thinking about this. This is also becoming a real boardroom phrase right now. How do you talk about budgeting for this versus traditional cloud spend, and how is Red Hat figuring it out too?
Yeah, no, great question, Rebecca, and I will have to say, right, we probably haven't figured this one out ourselves, right? We're experimenting, probably like a lot of other companies. Okay, so on the one hand, you could argue and say, well, worry less about it, give everyone tokens, let them run wild and let experiments happen. We did that too ourselves for a while, right? A lot of experiments happened, which by the way is, sort of a very open source, way of working, right? Let 1,000 flowers bloom, right? But then you end up with a lot of duplication, overlap, right? The opportunity to say, can we identify some best practices collectively, right? To say, well, here's a great way for us to have an automated build pipeline, right? That we can use. So we did that, and you're seeing results of that with the release that we did of Red Hat Hardened Images based on the Hummingbird project, completely autonomous, right? That's how we're building thousands of container images now every week, right? And at this point, I think the last report that I saw, humans probably were in maybe 10% of the merge requests that got in there, right? So now there's a good way, a good pattern of working, right? Now other teams can go and be like, wow, the Hummingbird team's doing this. How can we take advantage of what the work they've done? Okay, that's on one end. Then there are other areas, right, that different teams are thinking about. Support, great example, right? To say, well, we've got, 2 decades of knowledge and experience in support cases, in K-based articles. How do we make sure that we take advantage of that and give that to our customers as well? So what we're doing now is to say, let's think about some best practices. Let's not necessarily be in the business of saying we're going to reward only the team that burns the most tokens, because guess what? Multiple agents start running overnight doing random tasks. But let's make sure that we are being very, very deliberate about our environments while still letting some experiments run, right? Because you want to make sure there's some innovation.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's also going on, and you guys talked about it on the main stage both days, is that people are looking at this and going, hey, I have to make this secure as well. And because I'm worried about things going wild, things deleting entire cloud accounts or my entire cluster and stuff like that, the whole automated SRE type activities. Where do you see, as people are scaling, some of the things that you're bringing to the table, helping them get to inference at scale, but doing it securely and doing it with those guardrails and things?
So one element of that, right, is the inference at scale part, right? So, the work we're doing in the VLM project and LLMD, right, with the leading contributors to that. Great news is, there's lots of other companies, right, who are all involved and engaged, right, whether it's NVIDIA, Google, many others, right? So we feel pretty good about that, right? That's the way we work really well, right? And so making that available to everyone, making sure that that becomes a de facto open source, industry standard for everyone to take advantage of inference optimization. Now you couple that with the work that we are doing, again, in a community to say, how can we provide isolation technologies and ensure we do that in Linux as well as in Kubernetes, right? So the network needs to get isolated. How can we ensure that we provide technologies, provide guardrails, right, that companies can use? How can we ensure that there is ways to do red teaming, right, against possible threats that come through. So today we demonstrated that, right, and made that available for our customers to be able to use. And so we're feeling like we're at the point now where customers are very aware. You've got developers now using all these technologies, but they're very aware that they want to make sure that they provide this appropriate security boundary around it for the tasks that can be done.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up on that, because you said something interesting on the main stage this morning around the networking side of things, and I think one of the things that was really, and I was sitting with a friend who happens to be in the networking world and one of your customers, and he was like, oh, well, is this how, from an upstream perspective, the BGP and the being all of that, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, everything is upstream. I'm like, this is all, so there's also things like Spiffy Inspire and other stuff. Do you see that people are like, I need that whole, from agent down to network, all simplified from that?
Yeah, no, it's a great point, right? So yes, we do, right? All the way from the Linux layer up to Kubernetes, right? Network isolation that we put in place. We talked today also about, effectively the term that's being used in the industry is agent ops, right? Ensure that you've got identity, that you can verify identity, right? Whether it's a human or an agent, right? Ensure that it gets appropriate permissions. That's part of the demonstration that we did today. And then have the traceability, the auditability around it. And I think we might get to this, right? All of these things that we're talking about, they don't sort of exist in a vacuum, right? I talked about virtualization. I said you can't have the virtualization conversation now without having an AI conversation. Well, you tie these two together, and they also lead us naturally to a sovereign conversation, right? And we're seeing that, especially in an event like this, we've got customers from around the world that will come who are really, really interested in that. And I'm like, you can draw effectively a steel thread right across all of these dialogues we're having.
Yeah.
Well, Ashesh, say more about sovereignty, because one of the things you said that stuck with me was the companies that successfully scaled won't be the ones that give AI the most access, it's the ones that give them the right access. Right. So say more.
Yeah. So I'll use sovereignty as a way to have this conversation. What we're seeing now increasingly is, due to a variety of reasons, and I'm sure a lot of us can understand that, right? Whether it's geopolitics or specific governance needs that they have, countries around the world, environments around the world, and I'll even say enterprises around the world, right, are very focused on having a sovereign environment. It's a natural place for us to go because to us it's an extension of the hybrid cloud that we've been working on for 10 plus years, right? To be able to say there's an environment that needs to be set up. Now, having said that, that's not enough, right? Because there are specific requirements. One could be compliance, right? So, okay, there's a bunch of, DORA or, GDPR or other regulations we want to make sure that, we are adhering to and providing a compliance framework, giving support via operators to make that possible. Then the other part is in these different places, right? Whether it's in Asia, in the Middle East, in Europe, they want to make sure they've got, blueprints or pre-tuned environments that they want to set up. So we're giving them landing zones, right, which has all the appropriate sovereignty or governance requirements already built into it. And then we're also giving you an API to be able to extend that out to others, right? So these are just some of the capabilities now we're building into the platform. So that same platform that you're using, right, going back to your earlier question about, I'm going off and running workloads in one environment, we're also going to enable for you to use that same platform to build this next generation of sovereign workloads.
So I think one of the things that really plays off of that is also kind of model as a service, right? And how people are leaning into that. I mean, we were talking with Matt that, when we talk to organizations, most of them have moved away from trying to build a foundation model. Right. Now they're fine-tuning, and even small language models and things like that. How do you see that influencing how organizations look at controlling and building? Because it's all about the builders from that perspective.
Well, we have our own personal experience to lean on for this, right? Because Matt talked about in his keynote yesterday, we started a project ourselves, and we started off ourselves with the large frontier models. And then realized pretty quickly, wow, this is quite expensive for some of the tasks to be done. Well, what if we provide an API gateway that was smart, had the appropriate policies to say, for this set of queries that are coming in, we should reroute them to smaller models, right, distilled models, that are cheaper, but then can give us the same quality out. In fact, when we measured it, our collective architecture that we sort of put together, right, was giving us a higher level, right, of output, right, because we're now able to farm this out and do it in a much more cost-efficient manner. And so those experiences, obviously, we're sharing with our customers as well. We're increasingly seeing customers do the same as well, right, because they want to take advantage of the capabilities of the frontier models, which is fantastic, right? But at the same time, they've got their own models, right? Let's say an Arabic model somewhere in the Middle East, right? Or a specific model that a particular country has built out in Asia. And we want to make sure that we have an environment, an architecture, a platform that helps support those.
I want to ask about some of the customers that you're talking to, meeting with this week. Up on the main stage, we've heard from NASA, we've heard from Motorola. Here on the show, we've had the Cleveland Clinic, we've had others talking about how they're modernizing their legacy platforms. When you think about your customers and what separates the ones that have done this successfully and really achieved the scale that you believe customers can do, what separates them?
Wow, Rebecca. I don't know if there's one right answer, right? And we had on main stage yesterday Telenor and Eurocontrol, right? And so at first sort of, thought you'd be like, wow, a 100-plus-year-old telco, in Europe, or Eurocontrol, effectively does the management of flights that, fly across Europe and provides you essentially, air traffic guidance around it. How are all of those companies going down the path to adopt AI and be successful at it? We had NVIDIA on stage as well, right? The work we're doing with them to help become successful. I think some of those partnerships are really helping customers, right? So for example, at one of these customers, we work closely with NVIDIA to get the Red Hat AI Factory with NVIDIA installed and run there. You're seeing partners here on the show floor, right? So whether it's Dell, Hitachi, Lenovo, any of these companies, also helping to make customers successful. I think the biggest thing that we find is customers that are both open to the innovation, but then two, are doing that with keeping in mind security, keeping in mind the use case that they have, and being targeted and focused around it. I think the combination of the two really is what is yielding to some really great successes, right? Like the ones we've been highlighting.
So I agree with that, and I think that it all plays into that whole convergence where people are trying to bring things together because they're looking in, and I think you brought this up, not having all the answers for token economics yet because I was talking to a CFO and he's like, I don't know how to budget for a token. Yeah. He's like, and oh, by the way, I'm told that, and he's right, the size of the tokens and how many and all changes based on the models and what you're doing. How do you see, as you're building product to go forward, helping organizations really, I was going to say, it sounds like some of it's in the VLLM range, some of it's in LLMD, and how they can get to scale and efficiencies while keeping that choice, from that perspective.
I think, again, it has to be based on use cases that customers have, right? So we obviously have teams, within Red Hat, who are specialists. We have, teams within our partners who are special as well. Some of them will call them forward deployed engineers. That's the sort of in vogue term these days. To work closely with customers, right? To be able to say, hey, look, let me understand. If you've got a team like our Hummingbird team, right, which is small team working quickly on a new project, well, the token needs might be a little higher, right, than the average team. If you've got a team that's working on security, well, their token needs might be higher. Maybe there's some other team that's just really early in the process. They will have a different, set of needs, against that, right? So don't, effectively be a one-size-fits-all, right? And then we want to also work with them to make sure we're sort of finding the right projects that will give you the highest ROI, and then, include the tools like VLM, the projects like LLMD, that's appropriate to set up that larger scale architecture.
Ashesh, we always love having you on. Next year, when you're back on the show, at Summit 2027, what is the headline you want to be saying on stage?
Rebecca, that's a trick question.
Progress that you want to be made.
Because I know what you're going to do when I come back. You're going to start right there. You're like, let's look at your prediction. So now let me see how I avoid this trap. No, I'm kidding. No, it's an absolutely fantastic question. So, we're really proud of the work we do with customers, right? Ultimately, you can do all the things you do in technology, but if you don't have customers who are using it, taking advantage of it, creating value for the users, then that's just technology for technology's sake. The fact that, we have such a wide variety, right? You had NASA today, you had Nissan talking about the work they're building for the next generation software-defined vehicle, then yesterday you saw these more traditional organizations, and you had someone like NVIDIA, obviously, at the cutting edge. I would like to repeat, right? Let us have a diversity, right? Because that's inspiring. I've heard from customers as well. And then the next one is I also would love for us, and you will see if customers have been able to make that journey, is if they've made a virtualization transition, let's have them also talk about we're now further along on our AI journey, and check in on that. Right, so I think both of those, right, the diversity as well as seeing some of the customers, who've made a start and kind of checking in and see how far they've come would be fantastic. And then, I don't know what the next agent will do, so we might have a new conversation that you or I could predict.
Agents talking next year.
There you go.
I can almost guarantee we'll talk about AI, but I think to your point, it's hopefully how far people have come with it and how they're actually seeing the ROAI, so the return on AI at that point.
I look forward to it.
I do too. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I'm Rebecca Knight for Rob Strechay. Stay tuned for more of theCUBE's live coverage of the Red Hat Summit. You're watching theCUBE, the leader in enterprise tech news and analysis.